August the 15th, just a few minutes after 3 o'clock. Mr. Thomas is going to lead us in a prayer, and Mr. Smith is going to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Before I start praying, I'd like for y'all to remember D. Ray Harrison. He's not doing good, so you will keep him in the prayers. Lord, we come to you today and we ask you to be with us during this meeting. We ask you to be with our law enforcement and our military. We ask you to be with us in our shortfalls in life. Ask you to be with the sick and the poor and the people who've lost loved ones. And Lord, we ask you to guide us today and help us make right decisions and let our decisions be worthy to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
That flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, welcome to everybody. Not as big a crowd as usual, but kind of understandable with what we're covering today. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda, or do we have any agenda changes? And a motion to approve the agenda?
So be it.
All right.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we are going to work into the budget. So, Mr. Newton, are you going to lead this thing, or?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So we're going to start on page 3 of your handout. These are the changes that have occurred since our last meeting on 8/1. Starting from the top, at our last meeting, the sheriff had put in a health insurance increase, which was a little over $56,000. Had submitted a request for raises in the amount of right at $329,000. Since our last meeting, we did get our communication services revenues, which is actually an increase of right at $3,900. Last meeting, it was improved to add an assistant county administrator to the budget, and the amount of that is $81,900 with benefits. The board had asked that I contact the other constitutional officers and that they submit increases for raises, as well as any other increases that were necessary. The tax collector submitted an increase for raises in the amount of $13,800. The property appraiser requested an increase of $33,268. This is actually for health insurance, which is almost right around 6,000 of that 33,000, and the additional is for raises. For my office, I'm requesting an increase of $50,157. The supervisor of elections is requesting an increase of $53,610. We have included the $600,000 increase to EMS and fire. That's $300,000 for fire, $300,000 for EMS, which provides the additional ambulance on the road. Underneath that, you'll see the increase to the EMS MSTU in the amount of $380,669. That would be based on 1 mills. You see an increase to the fire assessment of $304,248. That would be at the $177. Underneath that, for the road department, based on the emergency meeting and the purchase of the grapple truck, we have removed the $200,000 from the road department budget and added the lease payment for the grapple truck of $50,000. We also added $39,000 for the lease payment for the excavator that was left out of the budget request. So of that, probably the biggest questions, you probably have are on the raises. I can tell you the tax collector, his raise request is $1 per hour. The property appraiser has requested $2 per hour. In my budget, I'm requesting a 5%, which amounts to, on average, $1. And the supervisor of elections, we just received this number a couple hours ago, and I don't actually know what that's made of. I just know it's $53,610.
They only have 3
I was
employees.
fixing to say, they only have about 3 employees?
Or they count-
Well, technically, there's
Oh,
2 employees because the supervisor is by statute, and we don't typically, we're not lumped in with raises because the raises are set by statute.
So there's 2 employees and they're asking for $53,000?
Plus your poll workers, I don't know if that's included in it.
That-
Does it include the poll workers or?
I don't know the answer to that. All I received was it was basically a new sheet like her original request, but just had the increased amount. So I don't really know what it accounts for. I'm assuming it's for two employees, and I would assume probably poll worker in some form or fashion, but I don't know what the makeup is. So,
Maybe call her and see if she can come over, or
I'm trying.
Now, I'd like, at least like to know what the request is for before I make a decision on that one, but,
Yeah, Todd, I know, last year, I think we did, was it $1 or $2 per hour across the board?
I believe last year was, actually, we've got it right here in the book.
$2?
Last year was $1.
Year before was
2 years ago was $2.
Okay. How would, $1 across the board for all offices compare? Yeah. And so the total for this year is, the request right now is,
The total for all, or just for,
just trying to compare what we've been doing versus what was being requested.
The state did 5%, right? The state did 5%? The state,
The state.
Florida.
yours was about $1, you said?
it's 5%. So I did 5%. On average, it comes out to about $1.
And then Damon's was $2, and then, okay.
Damon's was a $2 per hour request. Tax collectors was $1 per hour request.
Which all of those are less, basically about the same what we did last year.
In the ballpark, yes, sir. So, I mean, just to kind of give you a comparison, what the board has done based on the dollar amount and the number of employees, number of full-time employees, that the board takes care of, your average is around $29.60 per employee. The sheriff's request for 76 employees comes to around $4,300 on average. The tax collector comes to around $2,300. The property appraiser comes to around just over $4,600. For my office, comes to $2,950. And then again, with the supervisor of elections, I don't really know how to calculate that. If I did it on 2, it's a lot. But I don't know if it's based on, a larger number than that.
What did you say the board decided was?
$2,960 on average.
Is that with what Bobby proposed, or is that with the 5%?
That's with what Bobby proposed.
Okay.
So basically,
about 270,000.
right, basically it's around $270,000, divided by 91 employees. I removed a couple departments that the board doesn't really do their raises, so anyway, based it on 91 people, it comes to $2,960.
Yeah, what we basically did was took after we did all of our salary surveys and studies of the multiple places, and then we built a new starting rate and then we gave people credit for time served, and that's what got us to that amount. So what that actually does by doing it that way, that takes care of your compression factors, and it takes care of, people getting credit back for time served, because some of, I'm not complaining about the way it's been done in the past. I think it was necessary, but we finally got through the, mandatory, new, minimum wage, thank you. And we got through some, issues with, Medicaid where we were required to do some. So now we're through all of that, so we can actually build a program and we can work from that program. And hopefully with that program in the future, we say, okay, let's go ahead and build in a 2% increase, maybe next year or whatever, and then that can be in the budget. We did that for a few years, but then they threw in all these curves at us with the new minimum wage and some things, and it got us off track. So, but this would keep places, and it also gives you a competitive hiring rate, and it also gives you some levels of promotion that if somebody comes in and, can really operate or do a lot of things in that department, that they can promote up and be able to make a little bit of money based on those promotionals. So that amount actually helps you put together in a complete, a new pay structure for hiring, with promotional points to where people can promote based on their abilities. So it kind of works real good across the board.
It also helps some of these salaried people get to the level where they need to be, that's gonna be required by law. So it helps them also.
It does. So we got a statute to meet by, required law by January the 1st, which we'll meet, so.
But if we adopt this here and say next year's budget, that we could go to 2% or 5%, we wouldn't be held liable to this.
No, well, this would be your new hiring rates, okay? Whether you give a pay increase next year or any year, that's determined by this board, and of course, that's dictated by revenues. And what could happen, we could go through a period like we did once before, y'all did 4 or 5 years, you just couldn't do anything because there wasn't any money there, and you have been able to. What I would recommend, and I would say y'all discuss this maybe in January, not for the purpose of this, but maybe look at, okay, go ahead and put a 2% raise in, let everybody do it, and then when you see the original budget, you know what's in there. If you don't have enough revenue, then that may have to come back out. But if you have enough revenue, it's already in there, and then you're not coming down to the wire trying to figure out what you're gonna do each time. We had a couple of years we did that, and our revenues worked out well, everything worked good, and it worked out, I thought it worked out well. I think Mr. Newton and them thought it worked out as well too. But that's kind of what I would look to do. I would look to try to get a standardized program, so when you are hiring someone, you can kind of tell somebody, this is what we hire you on. We've got this many levels that you can promote through if you want to do this, this, or this. And also we try to give a 2% raise annually based on if our revenues allow for it. So you kind of have a program. It's not, you're just gonna, but now where you're at today, the last couple of years, it sort of got thrown in your lap because of changes in minimum wage and stuff like that. But that's kind of, and that's what we do. The numbers that we've given to you here, there's a formula, that's the standard for getting to what somebody makes based on the new hiring rate, and that's how you get everybody there. So that puts everybody where they should be based on their time served. And then moving forward, you have fixed all your compression factors and all. I'm sure there'll be another curve that gets through down the road somewhere, but for now, it puts you in a good, I feel like, I keep saying, I feel like it puts you in a very good position. We put a lot of time in it. We were trying to get this back to y'all in 3 months, and it took us almost 12 months, but, and that's why we're trying to get y'all to that kind of good.
To get a standard, according to this, some people will get a raise and some may not. Basically depends on how long they've been here and how much they're making and all this kind of stuff.
Correct. You may have somebody that's only been here, say, a year or so, and or a year, and they may not get an increase because, of what they were hired in at. You know,
Right.
it may already be there.
Right.
You may have somebody that's been here 30 years, and because of some of the stuff that y'all have already done over the last few years, they may not get one, or they may only get $100 or $150. And then you might have somebody who gets a larger one because it just doesn't fit in. But this gets everybody where they're going. It's probably, it's very fair across the board. It's very fair.
Well, I looked at it and I like the fact that if you're an operator one, you start out here, and if you're operator two, you see the increase because of the experience that you have and the longevity that you have. It promotes people up because they're not still 5 years later making the same thing they was hired on.
And we don't have,
Especially if they've moved up the ladder as far as,
and
being
in
able to do
some,
more stuff.
right, in some position you deserve to move, you need to move on up because your abilities put you in that, in there.
So,
And you could hire a new employee that has all the experience, exactly what you're looking for. He can do most anything, and he'll start at a higher rate because of this, because of where he may be an operator, start out an operator two instead of a one.
Well, for instance, if you're a paramedic and instead of an EMT, you're gonna get hired in at a paramedic rate. If you're, gotta have a CDL license and you don't, you're gonna get hired in at a different rate. But,
Right.
you know, people can come and as soon as they get, if they wanna go get their CDL, as soon as they get it, they go right up. That EMT, as soon as he gets his paramedic, goes right up to that pay. So you don't have to keep waiting. You can actually, based on what you want to try to, a lot of it is what do you want to accomplish? We've got a scale. What do you want to accomplish?
I'm just afraid if we don't do something during this budget time, you talking about kicking that down to till January, so.
No. I meant approve this now. What I'm talking about in January, y'all could talk about, do you want them to just go ahead and build a 2% raise into the next budget?
Yeah.
We need to just even forget that.
Yeah.
Really, that's just future conversation. You need to approve what I'm asking is to approve the new pay salary or pay program today with how we build it based on your years of service, and then move forward. January, February, just to get a little bit ahead of curve of the budget, you could talk about what you'd like to see in the budget then, and then they would know what to build in the budget when they do the budget.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, just a comment. I think we would all agree, our employees are our most important part of our government. Because with good employees, you basically get good services. And, I expected some variation amongst all the offices because we didn't do like we did last year and just said everybody across the board $1. But I still would think generally they would be similar increases. It seems like to me, and I also understand that, you know, one office or one constitutional office or the board, there might be employees that hadn't had increases, and so there's a little difference in, you know, looking at these numbers that you gave us, the total by office. But still, I think we should be able to compare per employee an average or $1 or $2 average. And so I think that should be our goal in this process. And so I would support, definitely, we want to keep our good employees. And I know, talking to the sheriff last, he presented, you know, the idea of losing people. It's really the same in any department. And we don't want our emergency management or our fire rescue or our solid waste. We want the best people staying here and serving our residents. And so I support generally the idea of these increases. I do have some questions related to the supervisor of elections. I think I'd like to get a little more information on that. But
Richard, the sheriff's request, does that pretty much cover what he was asking for to bring his deputies up to where he needs to be? In other words, that's built into this? Yes. Okay, so this would be. Uh-huh. Right. And the 15% difference between the levels of promotion, yeah, okay. I sat down with the sheriff for a couple hours, him and Robert, and that need is, that need is really there. I mean, it's for real. Sheriff always turns in money, you know, and stuff like that, and he don't ask for a whole lot, but, after they explained it to me, what they need to do, almost have to do, I think we have to support them in that, to get them to be able to retain their deputies and make them want to live in Gilchrist County and work in Gilchrist County. You know, money ain't everything, but if you're happy with your job and you're happy with everything that's going on around you, you're more apt to stay, and the longer they stay, the more they learn about the community, and the better they fit in, and to me, that's, like Darrell said, our employees are important. We want to keep them as long as we can, and help them any way we can. But, I really support the sheriff on this request.
And Sheriff, it's important that they stay because they build a rapport with the community, then you get to know who they are, and you see them at football games or events, and I think it's important to have a good rapport with the employees in the sheriff's department.
I support all departments. I'm just saying, I support Reggie, but what I'm saying is, sitting down talking to him, he really opened my eyes of some of the issues that they were having. And I've talked to him for the last year about it, because, you know, he went to hire 4 people for corrections. He's only got 3. He went to hire 2 correctional officers, and he had to beg and borrow to get somebody to apply, you know. So he was really struggling with just the bare minimum of, I've got to have 2 resource officers. I've got to have this, you know. It wasn't that he was out hiring extra deputies. It's just that in order to operate the way I've got to operate, I've got to have them. It's almost a mandate.
Yeah, he did, Mr. Willis did a good job at the last meeting.
He did.
Explaining, you know, the need, and he broke everything down for us, so. I don't have a problem with it.
I ain't got a problem with the sheriff either, and I don't have a problem proposing what Mr. Crosby had put together for a road department. Yeah, I like Bobby's proposal.
Well, that's not only the road department, but that's everybody.
That's everybody.
And the tax collector did get a state raise, and the sheriff got one. They both got a good raise. Now, yeah, that was
So none of the other
that was done by
constitutional officers?
Tallahassee, but we have to foot the bill.
Yeah, I was gonna say appropriation is probably not the right word, but no appropriations came with it.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have to have I mean, the only one I'm stuck on is the supervisor of election ones. The other ones I'm happy with and can understand. And
John wants to call again to see if she's on her way.
Or, well, I mean, could we talk about it at our meeting on Monday? We got a meeting as well. I mean,
Can.
Or do we have more stuff to talk about today?
yeah.
Yeah, let's just talk about, and see if she comes. If not, we can do it Monday.
yeah.
All right, so flipping over to page 4. So within this fund balance analysis, it does, it has all of the changes on the prior page. So, you know, depending on, you know, what the board, you know, which direction the board decides to go, you know, it could change this, but it does have everything on the prior page within this breakdown. So what it shows is that revenues of 31.2 million. It shows expenditures of 29.4 million in general. Provides a surplus of just over 1.8 million. Again, the transfer to capital of a little over $4 million. That's the $3.5 million for solid waste and the jail. It has a transfer of just over $1.7 million, which goes to fire and road. Transfer of $395,000 for fire and $1.3 million for the road department. So that provides a net deficit of little over 3.9 million, which would come out of your fund balance. That provides the total expenditures in general, 35,162,455. In fire, and again, that is at 8.7 mils, that assumption,
You mean
the general
the
millage rate.
general?
Yes, ma'am. So in fire, and this is again based on the increase in fire to the 177, that produces revenues of 1,443,000 on expenditures of 1,722,000. Again, this does have the additional $300,000 for the added ambulance. Provides a deficit of 278,000. And in order to keep fire in compliance on the fund balance, you'd have the transfer of the 395. That produces 116,728 in additional, but allows you to get to your compliance of 344. And that's based on a fund balance at the beginning of next year of $228,000. So in order to get it up to the 344, we have to put additional funds in. In the road department, we've got revenues of 1,524,000 versus expenditures of 3,033,000. Provides a deficit in road of 1,509,000. If we transfer 1,311,000, that would reduce the road department fund balance by just under $200,000. With that, it would still be in compliance and would have additional funds over that for next year. In EMS, this is based on 1.0 mils for the MSTU. That would generate revenues of 2,726,000, expenditures of 2,430,000, produces a surplus of 296,000, and keeps it in compliance. And any questions on any of that? Solid waste, nothing has changed.
And those are projected because we haven't finished the year out, right? Correct.
And you're usually, pretty close to, you've done it long enough and have enough experience that you are pretty accurate with those projections, right? So we appreciate all you do.
Richard, that stuff on the page 3, the 417,000, that's not included in that though, is it? Or is it?
Well, that's.
But on these right here, like the sheriff's request and all the others, the tax collector property, is that built into this? So it's already in there? Okay.
Ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right.
Supervisor elections is here.
Oh, hello, Connie. I didn't see you walk in. I've been looking at numbers. We just, we had heard from, the others, their reason for the increase in budget, and we just didn't understand what yours was and wanted to hear from you what the $53,610 is being brought in for.
Is that in personal service? I went ahead and added the raise that we're supposed to be getting in mine, where I don't know if Michael did or Damon. Mm-hmm. Well, and I didn't have the insurance in it, and I have to pay my girls out, cause they have to be paid out, they have to be bought out of their
Okay,
sick time.
that's leave payout then.
Yeah, some of that's, cause I have to pay him out, cause Tracy's leaving, and if Lisa doesn't win, she's leaving as well, so they have to be paid out for their sick time or vacation, whatever the percentages you can get. I did
If
increase,
Lisa wins, then
she still has to be.
she still has to be
still has
paid
to pay
out
at
because
the
she's
time. Yeah,
changing,
weekend
she's
vacation.
leaving and coming back in at a different position.
If she wins, yes,
Okay.
but either way, I have to
Either
pay
way,
them
we
out.
have to pay her out,
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Yeah, they have to be paid out. I did increase my poll worker, because like I said, we're gonna have a special election, for the school board, race, and so.
When
that'll be
when is that gonna happen, Judy?
probably sometime January, February. You gotta give them time you gotta open it up for people to come in and qualify, and then
So, it's gonna be a special election, not gonna be appointed by,
if they keep dragging around, I guess it could be appointed, because it's gonna be under 28 months. I called and I have not heard one word, anything back on any of that. I've not been notified, nothing from the governor's office.
Yeah.
So did you give your two employees, Lisa and Tracy, did you give them a raise?
Yes, I was putting in $2 an hour. Yeah, but I did go ahead and add the additional for mine, because I've been told we're getting a $41,000 raise. So I added that on top of it, of what I did have. And then the raise for the girls, they threw in a part-time, the accrued increase on poll workers, so it's gotta up them $1 an hour.
I'm guessing, well, they don't get paid enough, and they definitely deserve.
They barely make minimum wage. I
Yeah.
mean, and some of them do make minimum wage, but when you got to increase them $1 an hour and they set their 13 hours.
Yeah.
And the next supervisor, because it's gonna be on next year, so January, February, you're gonna have another election. So versus coming and asking the board for money again, I just increased money in poll workers, so the money should be there to pay them.
Yeah.
So, extra money. And then the FICA and the retirement and the insurance, 8.9%. But that was my increase.
okay. We understand now. Before
Yeah.
we looked and everybody else was able to explain and we hadn't heard, so we were wondering. But I understand if you're having to buy everybody out and we're gonna give all the poll workers, how many poll workers are?
And this one about 62 or 63.
Wow.
62 poll workers you have?
Wow.
Yeah. And then you
Okay.
have to keep, which they don't get paid, I mean, but you got some on standby, if I have one that dropped. So, I mean, we got a list, but there's about 60, 62. You got 10 precincts and you gotta have so many in each one.
Right.
So, wow.
All right,
And
makes
then you
sense.
got to have a clerk, assistant clerk, a deputy, an inspector, and then you got other ones, because everybody's got a duty.
Now, after this election, the new supervisor of election will take over in November,
January.
in January. So you're here through the end of the year.
Yes, I have to leave office by January 5th.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, Tony.
A great career, and you've done a good job, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
And
Y'all always-
appreciate you coming over here and explaining it. to us.
You got it.
Well, it was a little shocking when we said she's got 2 employees and she wants $53,000.
No.
I knew it had to be
I
more
got
to
them all
it than
written
just
out.
that.
Yeah,
No.
well, that's what we figured. We figured, well,
No,
she's
they
still
was
going on
getting a
with
good
it.
raise. Yeah,
Her employees are gonna be in good shape.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Now, am I correct? And I guess, I don't want it if it's assumption, but is Tracy gonna be retiring it? She's retiring anyway.
She's leaving with me. Mhm.
Okay, she's
We're
leaving with you.
together.
Okay. So whoever the new supervisor is will be hiring new
Got a
staff.
brand new staff,
2 new people.
2 new people. Mhm.
How many years you got total serving under Susan and being?
I'll have 27 years and 3 months
Total.
total.
Good
Mhm.
for you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Retirement,
Good job.
retirement's good. But
Well, I
but you
hope.
find more things to do to keep you busy.
Well, that's okay. That's okay.
To the
I'm not
beach,
going anywhere.
beach or fishing or hunting or some of those.
Gotta play some horseshoe.
That's right.
If we could keep the storms from being all
Well,
the time.
that would make me happy also, so. All right, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Poor old Marty.
Okay. Well, that does make more sense to me now, and, so I'm happy with everything on that page now. That makes sense to me. I forgot about having to pay everybody out when they changed the guard there, so.
I have a question I wanna ask Bobby real quick. The money that we're putting in for solid waste facility,
Mhm.
that's in hopes that we can get the state in appropriations to match it. So if we put 3.5 million in there, we're hoping to get 3.5 from the state?
Yes, sir. We are, one of the things, and, I actually talked to Mary last Friday as well. And, she's gonna go ahead and start working on it, as far as that. And, one of the things she said that would be extremely helpful with us being able to be matching, dollars, basically 50 cents on the dollar. I will say this, though, if you don't get that, there are still some repairs that's gotta be done down there. I've got a gentleman coming, he hasn't called me back to schedule yet. He's supposed to get in touch with me, or me and Mr. Rush as well about doing a structural study of our current building right there as well. So we'll have that probably in the next 30 days, 45 days. That'll be provided to the county. It won't take very long. It's not very expensive either. I think it's something that'll be good to have, but there, if there's a number of ways they can fund this, they may fund it over a couple of years, they may fund it over 1 year, but construction takes a little while, but, either way, with or without that grant, there's gonna have to be improvements made based
Let's
on.
say, even if we build a new facility, we still need to do something to that one so that it's, because we're not destroying it, we're leaving it up, right? And using it for storing equipment under, is that was,
Depends on the structural.
well, that's what I'm saying. If it's
Yeah.
not structurally sound, then we,
If they can come in and give you some ideas, just, for different types of use, but I would wait until you got your study back from a structural engineer. Yeah, it would be nice to use that, as Mr. Rush had stated, that when they get 2 or 3 semi-trailers full of trash, to be able to park them under a spot where it's not raining on them. I mean, even though you can tarp them or different things, it's nice to be able to have a place, to do that, and maybe even some of your other equipment. So maybe we'll be able to do that. But one of the other things you just need a bigger facility to handle the volume as well. The volume is, they do a great job keeping it off the floor, but, sometimes everybody comes at once and it backs you up some, so.
Do we still have ties to Alachua County? I seen in there's like 180,000 contractual services with Alachua County.
No, we have some ties with Alachua County when it comes to, what program is that, Bob? I'll let you, can't remember.
you can come on up, Bobby. We have to have you recorded.
But
so-
as far as
I'm
the contract
but-
for transferring debris, no, we do that
I
ourselves.
thought we did away with it.
Because,
You're talking about, I think the line still says console service for Alachua County, but that's actually what we sending them to be different. Okay. 180,000. Yeah. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
330,000 one for Alachua County. Just mislabeled a little bit. Okay, well, I just seen 180,000 for contractual service in Alachua County, and I was wondering, I thought we did away with that. Okay, okay.
Most likely next year we'll change that over. One of the reasons we kind of left that was because you've still got Alachua County in the book, you know, but you can see the comparison and difference.
Okay. About drop 50%.
Bob,
Yes,
we
sir.
get that engineering study on our building,
Uh-huh.
we'd only be kind of in jeopardy if he says it's condemned and what do we do?
Well, to answer your question, that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
It very well could be a possibility when you get the structural study back, because as an engineer, he's gonna make a recommendation to you because he's liable for his recommendation. So that could be something that you have to move a little bit quicker on. And that's one thing, even if you start and you start building and spending your part of the money that you know, if it finishes up and goes through the budget, doesn't mean that you still can't get the other money to complete it, and you just build what you have money for. You know, so yes, that very well could happen. What would we do? What would you do at that point? Not sure, but we would have to figure it out. It may be some quick minor repairs, you know, on that building that you could come in and get done. It may mean you gotta get going pretty quick. I don't think the building is in the shape that he would come and say, you just gotta get out from under it right now, you can't use it. And the reason I say that, we just had some pretty strong winds a week or so ago, and that building has stayed up through those winds last year and this year. So I don't think you're at that point. I think if you keep letting it go, you will be at that point.
Yeah, I agree with you,
Yes, sir.
but I just didn't want him to come and condemn it and say, well, what we gonna do now, pile trash on the dirt, pick it up.
No, you won't pile it on the dirt. No, with the
They don't
DEP.
allow
might
that,
have something.
do they? No.
But no, I mean, you may have to do something quick and fast and all, but I don't think he's gonna walk in and say, shut it down, you need to shut it down. One, he can't shut it down, but two, I don't think his recommendation is gonna be, this building needs to be shut down immediately. I think he will give you a strong recommendation that you need to move forward with either removing that building and putting another one, repairing that building, or just building a new facility, and you'll know at that point.
What would you do if you did have to do it? Would you take your compactors and haul straight to New River and dump?
I think you would have to let Mr. Rush figure that out at that point. And, you know, depending on the weather, he may still be able to work out in the open some and, you know, with a little bit of work or something, you know, making some different arrangements. But if you got rain and all coming, then that might be what you have to do. And that's gonna be pretty expensive because you know, you haul several compactors at one time on a semi.
Yeah, Kendrick, I had some of the same concerns. What if he comes back with, it's very serious, but hopefully it's like Bobby saying, it's serious, but it's not, we gotta do something today. And going to the legislature, it's just gonna add to our package of, you know, when you get up there,
Give you
they ask,
ammunition when you go.
yeah, how
to
important
request
is it? You can say, well, we got this study and it shows this, and hopefully it'll help our case.
I think it will help your case a lot,
Yeah.
'cause I did even mention that we were gonna do the study. She said that would be great to have. But I don't feel like they would come in and just tell you, you gotta get out from under it right now. But you know, I think you got a year, you know, a couple of years that you can probably get something done. But, whether you get funding or not, and, you know, the hopes is that if you do get funding, a new solid waste facility's gotta be built. I mean, it's just, you're handling 400 or 500% more trash than when that one was built. So the floor's wearing out, the building's wearing out. It's treated everybody well to last as long as it has. You can't complain about it, but it's that time.
Yeah, Bobby, you said you talked with, Mary with Senator Bradley's office. I talked with, Representative Clemens because we weren't successful this year, and asked him what he's going out. He was in a high position as far as seniority, and he said there's a program at DEP that he thinks we could be successful with, and I know you're familiar with that too. And so hopefully that's something we can pursue before the session starts and have this studied. All that would help us, I think.
Actually, Mary said that she mentioned that program as well, so they're very happy to help us with appropriations and whatever they can do on the DEP side. The county's gonna have to push a lot of that leg on the DEP side, but they're very willing to get in there and speak to the people they need to speak to help them, make known how important this project is. So, you might wind up getting a couple of funding opportunities for it. You may get some from appropriations, you may get some that was appropriated for DEP, but it could be a lot of possibilities.
Be nice.
Yep.
All right. What's the next step?
Well, we have the tentative millage rate for, general, for EMS. And we basically just need to have discussion about where we at. Our current, proposed rate is 8.7. That's what these numbers are based off of. Our current proposed EMS is at 1, and that's what our numbers are based off of.
But we already voted on this at the last meeting.
You did. What I need,
Those were for the trim notice.
Yeah,
Now
those
we
are for the
gotta
trim
vote on the
notice.
final.
yeah, now we need to start honing in on this and figure out, is that where we're going to end up? We have 3 weeks until our tentative budget hearing.
That's when we'll make the final decision.
Yes, ma'am. And we need to know, as we head into that meeting, we have to prepare all the documents. We have to start working on the ads, make sure that they're correct. And, so we need to know, where is the board leaning? Is that where they're leaning at, or are they, are
And
you
your
looking-
recommendations are to leave them at 8.7 and 1 still?
Yes, sir.
Now, we have a new ambulance in there also, don't we? For
do.
400,000,
We do.
and we're not gonna buy it this year?
We're budgeting for it, and what the chief has said is that his intent is to try and purchase it, but he doesn't know that he will get it for next year.
Took
But-
3 years to get one last time.
Yep, took 3 years on the last one. I think things have loosened up since then, but, they're not gonna be any cheaper, that's for sure. The longer you wait, the more expensive they get. So if you can go ahead and get at least a
That's
price on them, then I don't think they're gonna drop in price.
How much are we over the fund balance, over the recommended fund balance for EMS? I don't have my glasses.
For EMS,
How much are we over?
so starting next year, you're at 474,787. Your fund balance policy is 485,994. So you're starting the year at your policy requirement. If you have all of the revenues budgeted and all of the expenditures expended, then you added $296,000 to the budget,
To the, fund balance.
to the fund balance. Now, within those revenues and within those expenditures is an ambulance. So you do have 400,000 budgeted for a loan for an ambulance, and you have 400,000 appropriated for an expenditure. So that is in there. Now, you are looking at potentially adding around $300,000, which means that, potentially you wouldn't necessarily have to get the loan, but as of right now, you have it budgeted. So that's what this budget is proposing, is that you're taking a loan out for an ambulance and you're purchasing an ambulance. If you don't do either of those, it doesn't affect it either way. But for instance, if you're thinking, well, let's just take the ambulance out of the budget, you already have 400,000 budgeted for a loan. So it's a net zero. If you remove it, it doesn't really help you, because if you remove the purchase, you're gonna remove the loan.
You're gonna remove them all.
So, it's a net zero effect if you were to remove it. if you don't purchase it, it doesn't affect it either way.
Right.
You know, if you do purchase it and you receive it, you have a determination, do we go out for loan or do we utilize fund balance? You know, those are choices that we would make next year.
What was the MSTU? What was it?
What is it
What is
based
it
on?
right
or-
now? What is
It's
it
at
right now?
0.731.
Because we're already going up, and I didn't, vote on this, but we're already going up in the last 2 years, 50% on fire from 80 to 177. And then now we're going up from 7.31 to 1% on EMS, MSTU. And we're not going down any on general, which is gonna increase
Correct.
revenues about $1.5 million, leaving it the same. I would, for EMS and the MSTU, I would still like to go like in the middle between 0.7, and I didn't bring my, it's somewhere in here. You know, what would be the middle between 0.73 and 1? That would be more of a,
On your previous, workshop, you have a handout and at 0.85, if you were to go to 0.85, I believe it reduces your revenue by 200,000. Is that what we were talking about earlier?
because we're
So-
still gonna have more in our fund balance than what our policy is.
So we are a little over what's required, but we're not way over what's
We're still
required.
gonna have almost 200. I just hate going up in all, categories is my thing. I mean, because their taxes are already gonna go up on general, even though we're leaving it the same because of property values, so people's gonna feel that because we are receiving 1.5 million more dollars. And then also going from, 2 years ago, 80, then we went to, 2 years ago, went to
135.
135, and now we're going to 177, so that's about a 50% increase within the last 2 years. And then now also we're going up with MSTU, we're not leaving it the same, which would still generate more money, just like the general did, but now yet we're increasing that now to 1.
Well, the MSTU are leaving the EMS at, current, I think it generates, what is it, like? At 0.731. Yeah. I think it comes back down to the same conversation that we've had before. What level of service
Do you want?
are the people looking for, and what level of service is the board willing to provide? And, if we're not looking to provide the service, then I think we need to reduce the rate. This year, the board is discussing adding an extra ambulance home, and in all of the conversation in the workshops, I think the board finds that it's prudent. Let's go ahead and add another ambulance home, which is fine, but in doing so, you have to pay for the service.
That's right.
And you have to be able to pay for it down the road. And if you don't plan for the future, you're probably not gonna have the funds to maintain that level of service. Because it's not just adding the service, but it's maintaining that level of service for the next, years in the future.
Yeah, I hate to go up too. I'm a taxpayer also, but at the same time, Chief Campbell indicated to me that he, is gonna do some stuff out at Walkasassi, Fire Department and ambulance service and provide, because a lot of our calls are out there. So if he can get that going again, and then maybe if we do have a little extra, get Spring Ridge to go on. My goal is to get Walkasassi back, Spring Ridge back, and if somewhere down the road, 138, get it back to where we've got more coverage. It'll help me on my fire insurance, my fire rating. If I have some type of fire service, it'll help me on my heart attack if I was to have one, if I had an ambulance somewhere in the neighborhood. What I'm saying is, if we do have a little extra, I'd rather put it towards opening them back up and providing better service. Even his response time is so much greater if he can put an ambulance out there, because otherwise it's got to come from Trenton. And when you have a medical problem, seconds count. I mean, they really, and I think Matt Rexroth did a real good presentation. 38 years ago, we had 2 ambulances. 38 years later, we still got 2 ambulances. I mean, with the population like it is, and it's.
That was my thing
Yeah.
is we were running 2 ambulances 15 years ago and we're still running 2 ambulances, yet look at the growth in Gilchrist County in the last 15 years. I mean, we've doubled in size, but we haven't doubled in our ability to take care of the people.
And I'm not against a third ambulance. I want a third ambulance, but I just think there's other, I just think we could like maybe meet in the middle instead of going all the way up to 1 and then take the extra that's gonna be above our fund balance policy to help for this year, instead of just, that's
Sharon, are
just
you,
my thought.
so are you suggesting though, using some of the fund balance to make up the difference and lower the millage rate some?
You mean for EMS, you mean?
Or the fire assessment?
Either one. I mean, because we're already receiving, well, I was talking about EMS because we're gonna be over our fund balance.
Yeah, I think, what I remember, the fire
And I don't
assessment
have mine.
proposed increase and the MSTU increase across the board for I forget what value property, but roughly $100,000 property was gonna be in the $100 range. I don't, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. So I agree, and we talked about that last time, and we didn't all, everybody agree on, how to do it. We agree on the services that we need, but instead of increasing all of it, across the board with MSTU or assessment, use some of the fund balance to make up the difference and keep the millage rate down just a little bit.
And I found that paper now, Commissioner Smith, from last week on page 14. So even with EMS, for example, if we met in the middle halfway, whatever halfway is between what we have now and 1, which will be probably 0.8 something, I'm thinking,
0.85, I think.
we could use the $147,000 that we're gonna have excessive fund balance, that's gonna be over our fund balance policy just for EMS. And then that 150 could pay, because we need 300 for an ambulance for EMS side. So that 150, so there's that 150, and then the other 150 can be for going in the middle instead of all the way up to 1. So we would still get the ambulance. That was just my thought. 'Cause we would
I
still
think-
be in we would still be in our fund balance policy for EMS.
So you're saying from 0.73, which it is now, to 0.85?
Well, whatever, I've got to figure out what the middle would be. I had it figured out last
It's
time.
0.85.
.85.
The dead middle would be probably 0.832 or something, but, 0.85 is a pretty good median between 7.3 and 1. If you think of 0.75 and 1, I think 8.5 would be about the middle. But again, can you do it at 0.85? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's still a question of planning for the future.
Yeah.
And are you providing the revenue within the fund to help it be self-sustainable and not needing additional assistance from the general fund?
And what are we talking,
And-
$20?
Yeah, that's what I had, 0.86 is what I have down here. That's what I had at my last one, 0.86. And then, this way, if we have to look at it next year, that's fine, but this way, we're already, like I said, increasing fire. And then we're already gonna be increasing MSTU. We're not decreasing,
Ad
the
valorem.
general millage rate, we're leaving it the same, which is still gonna be an increase in taxes. So, all three categories now is gonna be increase in tax. That was just my thought.
Well, and it's definitely a fact,
Mhm.
you know, if your property values go up, your millage rate stays the same,
Mhm.
you've had an increase.
Mhm.
Also bearing in mind the conversation that we've had about homesteaded properties.
Mhm.
The max increase in your property value is 3%.
Right.
So it does limit the damage that can happen to a homesteaded property. Now, non-homesteaded property, I think the cap is actually 10%. So, they have the potential for their values to go up, a fair amount more than a homesteaded property. But there is some protections there for your homesteaded individuals, as well. So bear that in mind.
Well, as much as I hate to go up, as he says, I'm a taxpayer too. I'm always wanted to bear on the side of, excuse my analogy, but I've always wanted to have a savings account that when hard times hit, and there's a possibility, a very good possibility, that we're gonna have hard times in the near future.
Yeah.
We're not in September yet, and September is our busy storm month, so there's another possibility for some reasons to have some resources right there. We're not that far over the fund balance that we've got this exorbitant amount of money over fund balance that we are just hoarding and keeping away from the people. Yet we need to add some services, in the ambulance. And I want to be prepared to be able to do that as soon as the ambulance becomes available. I don't want to say, well, we'll wait till next year's budget and see if we can get the money next year. So I wanted to be prepared for it. So that's where I stand. I like your recommendation, and that's where I would like to see it stand. Not that I'm wanting to tax the people anymore, but I'm also wanting to make sure we're covered when it comes to our obligations.
Call it a cushion, not a saving.
It's a cushion, and that cushion right now in these times, is very much needed, I think, in my opinion. I would much rather have the cushion and pay that little bit extra than not have it. That's my.
$770,000. 70. 70.
A little different.
Understand, when I heard that number, I kind of went, huh?
Like he's talking about, you have too much on balance, you have too much on balance. Well, how much is enough? Right. Do it around. It is, one silver. All of a sudden, the whole fund balance
It's gone. Yeah.
Well, going back to page 4 right now, under the general fund, we're going into the general fund balance where it says additional set by board at 5%. Last year it was 3%. I never voted on going up to 5%, so I don't know why we can't change that back to 3% there.
You can, but I guess if you could explain to me the advantage of doing that, like,
I mean, why was it set at 5 when it's always been at 3?
because we set it at that because your budget was changing. I mean, that was our decision. And again, it's your decision to set it, to agree to it, or to eliminate it. And that is your prerogative if you choose to do that. But my question is what does that accomplish for you?
Wouldn't that make the fund balance?
Okay. Mhm.
brought this up.
Mhm.
I have a note at the bottom of this on that
Mhm.
policy. This note says that, I'm quoting, additional cash carried over to reserve is set by the board's discretion, but then cannot be greater than 5% by Florida statute.
Mhm.
Policy limits the additional cash carried over of reserve, excuse me, to 20% of the total projected.
Yeah. So right.
It's completely at your discretion.
Mhm.
We'll make it zero, you can make it zero, but it still doesn't
Mhm.
change what your fund balance will be, because that's set up.
Probably it will make, what will make the difference, what will change is,
These are just, and the whole point in us developing the policy was because everybody came in and said, well, how much do we have? How much do we have? How much do we have? Well, I gave you a word math problem that gave you an actual number, concrete number that you can calculate, and you can go, that's the number we need to go for. So you can set a goal,
Mhm.
or you can lower the goal.
but what would change then would be the fund balance, above, the fund balance that we have above the policy, that would change. Right, because right now it's 1.5, but then if we set that back to 3, what it was last year, then that would be more then. That was just
Okay.
my thought.
I guess my question is what does that accomplish?
Well, it just shows that we have excess, even more excess money in our fund balance policy.
Okay. And what is that money there for? What is that money there for?
To operate for the first, what did we say, 2-3 months of our,
Mhm.
but that's what our fund balance policy is for.
Well, that's your policy.
Right.
I'm talking about the amount over your policy. What is that there for?
Emergencies?
For emergencies, for capital purchases? What are we fixing to spend $3.5 million on? If you eliminate your excess fund balance over your policy, what do you have for future needs?
Nothing,
Nothing.
exactly.
So, talking about this solid waste project, it's $3.5 million. It's not chump change for Gilchrist County.
No.
$3.5 million.
What if we come up
And
short?
how do we get that money?
That came out of our fund balance.
It come out of our fund balance. Well, how do we get that money?
Because we say.
We just had this meeting the other day.
Right, we
How
had
did we
money
get that
from,
money?
we had money from COVID, we had that
We
money.
got $5.5 million from COVID.
Mhm.
So $3.5 million of $5.5 million, COVID money
Mhm.
that would not have been there had we not had a pandemic. So if you didn't have that $5.5 million, now you're taking out 3.5 of that 5.5. So $2 million left over from that $5.5 million. Okay, we need $3.5 million in excess. So we just eliminated all of our excess.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Well, that COVID money to me was unanticipated funds.
It is.
Thank the Lord we got it, simply
Amen.
for the fact that we have a true need, that
Correct.
we're gonna take some of that and build a new solid waste facility, which
That's
we
right.
probably couldn't do had we not got that $5 million.
That's right.
We probably
We-
wouldn't be getting a new
We
facility
would
because
be
the money's not
borrowing
there.
money, we'd be borrowing money for a facility that's necessary, paying additional interest, and paying more interest than we'd be paying today if we went out for that same loan. Why?
Yeah.
Because you're in worse financial position.
Mhm.
The better financial position you're in, the better
better
rate
the
you're gonna
rate.
get when you go to the bank.
Yeah.
How many of you ever went to a loan to get a loan from a bank and you're in dire straits? Are they dying to give you the best interest rate? No, because you're a higher risk.
What would happen if we didn't have the money to do our fund balance that's required?
If you don't meet your fund balance requirement, within 3 years, we have to produce a plan that gets us into compliance. Yes. Yes. That means you're not doing any kind of increases. You're cutting the budget where you can. And you've got to get that within 3 years.
Okay.
Okay.
I have another question for Richard. I don't mean to change the subject. I went through all the requests that each department was asking, and to give you some examples, animal control's asking for a $40,000 vehicle, county extension $15,000 for a sprayer, library $3,000 for computer. All that's built in this budget proposal we have. Okay, I just want to make sure because, there's quite a bit of requests there. Solid Waste is asking for a new semi, and a design, $35,000 design. And of course,
This whole part is with this, you know, created this book.
right,
All of that is included in here, and then we added some features here, which that was the change line that you saw where it said, this is how much more than what we originally said
Right.
was coming in here.
Right.
So on. Put down the graph, you know,
but we still got 2 dump trucks. Still got all the rest of it. Okay. I just want to make sure it was in. I didn't want to come back and say, well, we forgot about this or didn't put this in there. I want to make sure I get the whole picture. And I want to ask Bobby about the water plant at Hart Springs and the, campground expansion. Is that going to be FERDAP grant, possibly?
Well, right now, we're working with DEP on a grant for repair and or replacement of the water.
Well, the water plant.
Yes. The campground, expansion is no, that will not, it's paid.
So that's coming out, that's the county.
Right.
Okay, and the $158,000 for the water plant, you're working on that.
Yes.
Okay.
That's an active grant that it's not a grant, it's an active submittal of a grant.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're still working with them actively right now.
But even with the expansion of the campground, from the revenue we generated from Hart Springs last year, we just kind of basically reinvesting our
Well,
money.
what you're also doing, you're investing in something that will create you a revenue.
Yeah.
You know.
It'll make us more money.
Right, because those are premium sites. Those are, a lot of people, you get those sites developed, you're talking $100 a night, more like sites, not $35 a night.
Well, that's what I'm saying, we reinvesting our money back into the project itself. Okay, so I guess what we gotta decide is what we wanna do all this at.
We gotta decide what we're gonna, whether we're gonna stay at we're gonna go up or go down, or well, we can't go up above the maximum that they've already got here, but if we're gonna keep it at what we said earlier, or if we're gonna go down, huh? You can't go up from what we said, yeah, I know that, but I meant, are we gonna keep it at what we set it at, or are we gonna go down?
That's gonna be voted on at the next meeting, right?
Well, keep in mind that I have to,
Huh?
that I build the advertising.
Bill, I do it for Bill.
It's just an exercise, they call it truth in village, but it's the most aggravating thing I've ever seen.
What's true about it?
Like that.
What's true about it?
But nothing is complicated as all get out.
Could be made a lot easier, in layman's terms. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it starts from the property appraiser, he sets all the assessments, and then it goes to us. We have to do the rollback rate, what you're gonna choose your rate is, and what rate you can have, what vote you can have, whether it's a simple majority versus where everybody, super,
Yeah.
you know, I mean. it
simple
dictates
majority, 3/5 majority, or
3/5 or-
super.
Yeah.
I think what Richard's getting at is that, yeah, technically speaking, Sharon's exactly right. You can change that thing at the tentative budget hearing. But he's saying he's got all these different departments to put the ad in the newspaper, and it makes it extremely difficult for him unless he has some kind of abstract idea of what he's got to do.
and doesn't have to be altering that to get it in the newspaper. Because there's also a timing issue that's involved with that thing too. You have to advertise it within 15 days of the tentative budget hearing, and then you must have the final budget hearing no sooner than 2, no more than 5 days after the final budget hearing is done. So it's a lot. I expect mine is simple that I do in Bell, because they have the one fund that they deal with. Richard's is quite complicated because there's a lot of funds, but technically speaking, yeah, you could adjust it, but it's gonna make it real hard on him. He's gonna be up later than 2 o'clock at 3 o'clock in the morning already himself.
And then plus the safest thing that I can do, because a lot of times you don't keep your trim or you violate from the statute that is surrounding the regulation for trim. You have to take out this full-page newspaper ad. You might have misspelled, well, it won't be a misspelling, but that would be a minor. Where you have put on the banner that the county been in violation of the trim statute.
And you have to redo it. You have to redo it
We don't want that. No.
and have another meeting.
So, just a question. We've got a tentative budget hearing set on September the 5th, a final budget hearing set up on September the 16th. We've already passed the tentative rates that are gonna be going on trim notice.
Yeah, that's your advertisement to tell
Okay.
the public what you intended to do when it was advertised.
So we come back September the 5th, and based on input from the residents, we consider this idea again. So I'm not sure why
Yeah,
okay, the trim's going out with the rates.
right.
We're gonna come back on September the 5th and discuss this again.
Well, I thought the last time we voted, we had to come up with a number, and y'all said we could go down, but we couldn't go up.
You
So we
can't-
gave
you
y'all
set
that
your-
number.
You set your tentative rate
Right.
for MSTU and.
We did
and-
that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so Mr. Leggett can get it on the trim.
Right, so that's what
notice.
we did.
It's
Correct.
mailed out.
Mm-hmm.
The advertisement comes from September 5th. So the bottom line is that occurs on Thursday. Friday, we have to get the ad out.
Mm-hmm.
That ad is gonna have all of the numbers that are approved on the 5th. If we know what those numbers are, we can be prepared and have those things ready. And we typically send it to the Department of Revenue for them to review and make sure that, everything is good in their eyes. The bottom line is on the 5th, if you come in and you change everything, that means on Friday, Mr. Romans is in his office scrambling to get everything changed and adjusted. So if we know what we're planning to do, we can be prepared, we can have all of our documents done and not have to worry about being out of compliance.
And it's still not hard and fast, because based on the public input at the tentative budget hearing, you can adjust it, and Richard will have to work all weekend to fix it, But they're trying to get an idea,
Yeah.
so he's already got it structured. Hopefully, there won't
Correct.
be any changes.
Because that's
That's
why
all
we're
it's
having
trying to
that
do.
meeting for the public's input. And so,
Yeah.
we can change it at that time, because that's what the public's gonna come that night, hopefully,
Yes.
and give their input.
Yes, and
So-
you have the authority to do
To
that.
change, right, to
That's correct.
change it.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
correct.
Well, what we're saying is if we know what you're planning to do, if we have an idea where you're planning to go, we can be prepared, have our documents completed, reviewed.
Well, I don't know that
And-
until the public comes that night, so.
Part of what is I turn stuff in the DOR to get their approval. When they bless it, I know I'm not out of compliance, then I can always say, wait a minute, you can't hold me responsible for this number or whatever. But you told me
I do that as well. I send everything and the resolutions to approve it to the Department of Revenue a week or so in advance and ask for their input. And they say, this is great, or no, you should change this. You have that done when you come to the hearing. If you do it on your own, you're out on a limb if you've made a mistake.
Yep.
I do have a couple more questions, Mr. Martin, Chairman. Some of the departments, like Damon, you mentioned he did $2. Another department did $1. I'm a little concerned about that simply for the fact that, and I don't know why they did it. I wish we'd have had this little information a little bit sooner, but I don't want to set a precinct that you ask for it, you can get it. In other words, next year I could say, okay, well, Damon asked for $2 last year, we'll ask for $2 this year. He got $2 last year, we'll get $2 this year. I don't wanna go back into and saying, you know, and I don't want departments saying, well, y'all got a $2 raise, we only got $1. The board only gave us $1, it gave y'all $2. You see what I'm saying? I don't want a conflict there. I'd rather do $1 straight across the board for everybody and keep it all the same, that way everybody gets something. Then one department do 2 and one do 5 and one do this and one do that. It's up to you, it's your department, it's your discretion. And we asked for a suggestion and you gave us one, but
I guess
I'm a little
my
bit concerned
question
about
is, are we talking about for all, or are we talking about for some?
No,
We're already doing it different
For the
as
board.
for the
I
board
know, but
and for the sheriff, so
I'm talking about the constitutional officers,
the
basically.
sheriff is a
Yeah,
constitutional
we're
officer.
doing it different for him, we're doing it
Yeah,
different for.
I know, I'm a
And-
little,
and
I'm a
I'm-
little
For
concerned.
your office
And,
also,
you know,
we're
I
doing it
knew
different.
what the sheriff was asking for, I knew what the average is, and I asked for something less.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I understood the situation.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying, but again, we're making it consistent for who? Like, I mean, consistent for the rest of us constitutionals? I mean, is that what we're saying, or are we saying consistent for all? Because we're not being consistent for all right now. And, I mean, the board had kind of made a decision this year that you're doing things different. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, and I hear what you're saying, and I mean, I agree. I
I
think
just
it's
don't
a
want to create a
concern.
monster.
I think it's definitely a concern, but,
Yeah.
Well, I think each constitutional officer looked and see what they needed. You needed 5%. Connie needed the $1, somebody else needed $2.
Connie did $2.
Or $2, and so everybody kind of, you know, they could have looked, because, you know, the salaries are in this book, but they could have even looked to see what they're starting, you know, and could set up my.
But I think the challenge in it
It'll
is,
make-
you know, the board itself is doing different than what the constitutionals have proposed. So I don't know how you make it consistent. I mean, the way we've always done it in the past was the board said, all right, it's gonna be X dollars for everybody, you know, and that's consistent.
Yeah.
And it's always worked, and I agree with what you're saying, but
We'll try this. If it don't work, we might have to kill the monster and start over.
mm,
The other thing I wanted to say, I know the sheriff's here. When I sat down with him and Robert, I'm all in favor of giving your deputies raises, and I think the board's in consent with, you know, to do that. But I asked Robert, you know, what will you be coming back and asking for next year, you know? And he said, this was 5 years. I mean, he said, I'll be good for 5 years. If I get this and I get my deputies and my promotions where they need to be, I'll be good for 5 years. So I just didn't want him to come back next year and with another big proposal, and I don't think he will. But this will get him where he needs to be, and he said he hoped it lasted for, you know, another 5 years. Yes, sir.
And he's absolutely correct.
Good.
Now, I want to make sure that everybody hears this. That does not mean that I won't be coming back and asking for something that. they
No.
don't see.
No.
But as far as the retention and recruitment we're trying to do, yes, we feel like everything that we're seeing, the growth that everybody else is doing, the other agencies, our size or smaller,
Mhm.
is we're gonna be consistent and up the rate with everybody else, competitive for the next 4 to 5 years.
Good.
Deal with our compression issues, for the most part, it doesn't take care of it all. because
No, I
I don't
know.
have a checkbook that's unlimited, and I understand that. But I will reemphasize, if we don't get this month, we are gonna be in a very bad situation long. I can't speak for everybody else.
No.
Mr. Newton is absolutely right, consistency. But I think if you look at one size fits all approach, you're not looking at it correctly.
Right.
With that being said, your short answer is for compression and recruitment and retention, we're very hopeful for at least 5 years.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
And to answer your question, you know, the challenge in this is, you know, everybody else is bringing their information to my office. I got my information done first, you know. Now, had I known everybody else was gonna ask for $2, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I would have changed that, but, you know, it does make me a little like, you know, maybe I should have asked for more, you know, but,
I just want to be careful, Todd. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I just want
I
to be
agree.
careful. I don't want people to get the impression Well, we asked for $1 last year, we got it. He asked for 2, let's ask for 2 and hope we get it, cause he got it last year. I just don't want it to be, that kind of attitude, and it may not never turn into that. I just wanna be careful the way we do, and I don't want departments saying, well, you give them way more than you give us, and your boss asked for it and he got it. I mean, I can leave it at that, but I just don't wanna cause a conflict.
Yeah, I would just.
I don't
say-
like animosity.
I would just say, I would be hopeful that, that we don't have short memories.
Right.
Yeah, I would suggest, I have some of the same questions, Tommy, and maybe we just, a group of, our leaders, evaluate how this is working, how it worked, make recommendations for next year and not wait till, April or May. Try to do it in January if we can, and if there's something that worked good and then that's repeated, if not, maybe we can change it, make it better. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I'm willing to try.
Yeah.
So if we need to set something today, I would say let's leave it like it is. Let's leave the middle rate at 8.7, the other 2 MSTUs at where we got them, and let them do the budget. I will ask Richard this question. Our projected fund balance as of 9/30/2025 would be, 10,336,540, 10,300,000, so that would be our fund balance. And I'm happy with that. Considering what all we've done this year, I mean, to me, we've done a lot. I mean, we've given pretty much everybody, their budget requests. I know we had some budgets, and I'll ask you this, like if some budgets, we budgeted last year and they didn't spend all their money, it either goes back in their department like fire rescue, or it goes back into general revenue. And we won't know that till after October 1st. So I did all the calculations on what everybody asked for. I did the overs and the minuses, and I come up with a pretty good budget that we're looking at right now for the next. I'm happy with it myself.
And keep in mind that $10 million, is the fund balance, is 2.8.
Yeah. And it's only 1.5 million above our threshold.
Right.
That's not a lot.
And Richard, the 3.15, that's for our operating budget, right? That's not above the months that, yeah, it'd be for operating.
Hmm.
But I still have to have 2 months worth of his expenditures set aside, so that I have the funds to give him, so that he can make his payroll, make his operating. Yeah, do that for all of it. Actually, they bring it.
You also have
Well,
you
and
also
I-
have projects that you're funding as well too.
Well, I think I mentioned this in another workshop, our November budget recap, I believe it was, we had spent somewhere in the neighborhood of like $5.2 million and generated revenues of around 137,000. Just speaks to the need at the beginning of the year, if you don't have money, you're not paying your bills to start with unless you're borrowing money. And,
That's where we used to be.
exactly. And there's entities that are in that
Yeah.
position, and, I pray that we don't ever get to that.
Are y'all seeing kind of where the fund balances don't be, if we do a road project or something like that, paying the state, we don't be in trouble? Or we could be.
You're right, especially a road, if we were to do a road in November, yeah, that road.
Yeah, and it's cost reimbursement.
Probably 60 days, 90 days.
When will we get that money from the state for that? When are we expecting to get the money from the state for that?
You won't get it until after you expend it and then you request the funding. So once time you write the check, do you probably get that money back is 90 to 120 days.
But you do it by invoice so much of whatever period of time, invoice, you don't do it all at once, or?
Well, we do some projects all at once. If we have a small project that's $400,000 or $500,000 and that project's gonna move pretty quick, we'll just do one submittal and do it. You know, the way DOT likes it, they kind of like a quarterly because they have to show the state that money's moving. But, even if we submit quarterly, that means they can show that they got an invoice from us. It's still 90 days sometimes before we get our money back, or 120. So, I mean, there was at one time, I think I calculated this year, we had $3.7 million that we were waiting on projects at one time. And that was just me tallying it up in my head. That wasn't actually going through it. So you know, it at any time with the amount of projects that's going on right now, it would not be unusual to be waiting on around $2 million on a regular basis.
And this is why you don't go off of memory. I was off a little bit. November 2nd recap, we had a little over $4.9 million in expenditures on revenues of 277,000. So
Still a big difference.
still a
Big
huge,
difference.
still a
Big
huge
difference
gap.
from what you brought in to what you put out.
Calculate that difference at 6 or 7%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can just see a trend at this board, where we go in 2 years, we don't get back more money to fund projects. And I don't like it. I like to be able to tell people, Gilchrist County, it's in good financial shape. We got money to fund our projects. If a storm comes through, we can cover ourselves. And we headed to a place like it was when Sharon first got elected, that we borrowed everything it did.
We are gonna experience some growth. I was at the building department, they had 8 driveway inspections to go do. So it's gonna continue to grow and pick up. I don't know if that's a good or bad. It depends on how we manage it, but I do wanna compliment the sheriff on all the time they spend on their proposal and trying to get your deputies where they need to be. And I know I've talked to you for a year or so about it, and how do we get you there and what do you need? And now that y'all spent all that time and effort, hopefully my hope is that the board will fund it and it'll go forward and you'll get to be where you need to be and make them happy, make you happy.
Another thing that's not in here is we've still got Spring Ridge.
We
gotta
do.
something with, and so we need to make sure we've got the money needed to finish that project. In some way or another, it needs to be laid to rest so we can take care of that situation. So I'm happy with the way it is.
Any
Said
decision
that.
that y'all make by the board here is it's non-binding. It's to move forward. It's direction for Richard and Todd in preparing for the tentative budget hearing.
And I'd like to see whatever we do today, that be it.
Well, I'm not gonna say that's gonna be it, because we have that budget, we're having the meeting on the 5th where the public's gonna come
Yeah.
and they're gonna speak, so I'm not gonna say, you know, I know we already said it at the last meeting, you know, where everybody agreed on it, we could go down, we said, but we couldn't go up. And, I'd like to just, you know, see if anybody shows up on the 5th.
Right.
So I don't wanna make my decision. My final decision until the 5th. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, well, Daryl's not here right now, so we'll wait till he comes back.
So
Yeah, if you do nothing more today even, It's gonna be on the trim at those numbers right there.
Correct.
That Richard's gonna be able to go ahead and make his ad,
Yeah.
subject to the public hearing on the 5th and it being changed. I guess he's just trying to firm up
Yeah.
for his workload, I think is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, really. Yeah. One thing, you don't wanna go to a Florida government finance office, okay, that's by the finance director, like I did last time, still broke down.
Right.
And he asked me, where's your budget? I showed him my budget, he goes, oh my God. So,
They probably look at yours and they look at Miami-Dade and there's a little bit of difference.
I told him I didn't have the same staff, he probably had either, he has the budget department, treasury department, you know.
Right.
Like he said, I don't do journalism. I'm a finance director of a big city or Hillsborough County. I come in and set policy. All I do every day is go to meetings. If I hire people like you to come in and do journalism.
So do we need to make a motion that we give you what you gave us today and let you work with that, and come September 5th, this is what we would be looking at?
Well, you can give me some direction.
We already did that at the last meeting. I don't mean, that, we already set the trim. I'm not gonna say what I'm gonna set tonight because I wanna wait like we've always done every budget year and wait and make that this final decision on the
We're not
fifth.
making the final decision. What he's asking for, do you want me to go with what he's presented today and bring it back September 5th? Is that what you want?
Yeah, bring it back.
That's what I
Bring
said.
it back, yeah. Bring it back.
Do we need a motion for that?
No,
Bring it back.
Yeah, just general
Okay.
consensus.
he-
So
he knows-
my instruction to you is to move forward with what you got here,
And
and
bring
when
it
you
back.
come back September 5th, this is what I'll be looking at.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yep. He agrees with that, so. Okay. All right.
So based on that consensus, we have a meeting on Monday, regular board meeting.
That's right.
Does the board feel the need, do they have any other issues we need to address
I don't think so.
before, the hearing?
I don't think so.
It's what might be proposed for the road department gonna be in this, what we see next budget year.
As far as,
Everything that I proposed is still.
Yeah.
Raise it.
Yep.
Well,
yeah.
It's
I
all
was
built
gonna
in
ask,
here.
That's
I
not
wanted
just
to
road
just,
department, though, that's everybody.
I just wanted to ask the question, cause I won't be at the September 5th meeting. We've worked, on the pay schedule for the Board of County Commissioner side, the employees.
Mhm.
I know you can't vote or anything, I'm not asking that, but is the general consensus of this board to follow that pay schedule that's been presented?
The one you
Yeah.
presented?
Me, the one you
Yeah.
presented?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. Well,
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
So
that
you-
was the sheet you sent us.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, yes, ma'am.
And that's already in our budget.
So you say we're
It
gonna
is,
make
yeah,
your job a little
it's in the
easier?
budget that was presented.
We're gonna make your
today.
job easier?
Yes, please.
All right,
At the end, I like this.
easier is good.
Well, I certainly appreciate all y'all do and your assistant there. Y'all was very helpful,
Yeah.
very, very helpful.
It was, y'all make it easy.
I don't want your job.
All right, any other business we need to discuss? Am I hearing
Motion to
a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn? In a
So moved.
second?
Second.
All right,
Hey,
all those in favor?